Greetings and salutations, everybody. It is a beautiful day here on the planet of Earth. And it is also a beautiful day for petty revenge. I feel the need to warn you, though. Your boy here, this boy, got a little bit of a tummy ache. Just a little one. All right, so we'll see how that changes the course of today. I'm probably not going to be screaming as much. Cut to me screaming later in the video. You ever have that feeling where you really got to burp? You know what I'm saying? It's just like a bubble stuck in your stomach. That's what's going on. I'm one solid burp away from feeling wonderful. That's all it is. And I get so mad. I don't know if my stomach's all twisted up or something. I'm just one burp away from being happy. Anyway, so today we're going to be looking at petty revenge, starting with this story. A regular kept spoiling a show I was watching. I used to work in a comic shop, and we had a lot of regulars who would come in every week who I got to know fairly well. There was one guy who had mentioned that he liked Stargate. So one week he came in, and I mentioned to him that I'd started rewatching Stargate from the very beginning. I also mentioned that I'd never seen the last 3 seasons or any of the spinoffs, so I was excited to see them. The first thing he says is, "Oh, so you don't know about detailed description of something that happens in the final season." You ever seen those videos of people who had read the Harry Potter series, like the day that it came out? Like not the Order of the Phoenix, what's the good one? Deathly Hallows. You know, where the big thing happens. And then there's a video of a guy who goes up while somebody's reading that particular Harry Potter book. Surprise microphone. And he says, "So-and-so dies." And then the retaliation of that is the kid who's reading this book gets up and just starts pummeling the other guy. Stories matter. You know, the way that we respect the artist as we go along the journey of the story that they carve out for us, it's really important for us to follow the nice little track in the mountains that they set for us. And if we don't get that experience, it's like a two-way disrespect. We're disrespecting the artist by not going on the track that they laid out for us. We're disrespecting ourselves and our ability to enjoy such a carefully crafted story when somebody else comes up and ruins it for us. This is what this guy did, and I was like, whoa, no spoilers, which should have been enough, but it wasn't. Every week he'd come back in and spoil it for me even more, and every week I would tell him to please not spoil it for me. This went on for about 2 months. Between the regularity of it and the smirk he'd get on his face every time I asked him not to tell me spoilers, I knew he was doing it on purpose. So one week, he came in and bought a big pile of comics he'd ordered. I waited for him to pay, and then, instead of bagging them up, I fanned them all out on the counter. You see, I read a lot of comics, especially back then. I read every new comic that was published by Marvel and DC, and then some, as they came out. So it just so happened that I had read every comic he had just purchased. I proceed to point to each comic and spoil every single one. He didn't talk to me about Stargate after that. That's pretty good petty revenge. That's good petty revenge because it is a one-to-one thing. You are doing to him exactly what he did to you. I like that in this situation. I don't always like that, but I like it in this situation. You know, honestly, I feel like sitting down is making this stomach thing worse, so I'm gonna switch camera angles. I'm gonna stand up for a little bit of this one. Yeah, just don't spoil a story for people, man. It's not bueno. You know what I'm saying? It's such a crappy thing to do. Here's something that I used to do though. Back in college, when Breaking Bad was a thing, before the series was over, my roommate in college at the time used to say that he wasn't caught up. He wasn't all caught up on Breaking Bad. And if you are not caught up on Breaking Bad, don't worry. This is not a spoiler because we were too early in the show for me to know this or not. But what I used to tell him jokingly was, "Oh, did you get to the episode where Skyler dies?" I was joking because that had not happened in the series at the point that we were watching it. I'm not saying if it does or doesn't happen ever in the show. That's what I used to joke around and tell him. Was, "Did you get to the episode where Skyler dies?" And he would be so mad at me because either I was clearly lying and bluffing to him that, like, just so you know, Skyler doesn't die, or I was telling the truth and spoiling it, and that was on me. But I would say it with a wink, just like, you know, we're playing a game of chicken right now. Do you know if I'm joking or not? Because I don't know. Because then in the back of your mind, you're like, does she die? Skyler being Walter White's wife. Anyway, very strange. This is the epitome of what I come to this sub for, right? Petty justice at its finest, sweet, satisfying, and totally deserved. You know what I will say though? Kudos to this guy for being able to point to each comic and spoil every single one. I don't remember most of what I read. Sometimes you'll notice me reading something right here on Reddit, and I will forget it instantaneously, even though the words came out of my mouth. It is a superpower that I have. I've got Ron Burgundy disease. I will read something down to the punctuation. It will come out of my mouth in a flawless fashion, and I will have no clue what I just said. It is a byproduct of my ADHD. I apologize, but it is a part of me. But the fact that this guy can read all of these comics and be able to comic by comic spoil it is mind-blowing to me. I don't have that kind of power. Yeah, I think standing is actually helping me a little bit with my tummy. Stand up, baby. It's time to stand up, baby. It's time to stand up, baby. This happened to me online with a girl who was hell-bent on spoiling Star Wars Episode 7 for as many people as possible in an online forum. She mentioned her boyfriend was a massive Star Wars fan and she couldn't spoil it for him because he'd get quote-unquote shitty. So she was doing it to others online for whatever effing reason. Getting it out of her system, I guess. Weird. That's weird. It's like, no, you actually don't need to get that out of your system. You ever think of that? You ever think that maybe you just need to shut up? Or talk to people who've already seen the movie and discuss the movie with them. You don't need to, why do you want to spoil it for people? That's crazy. I went in her profile and found her boyfriend, messaged him the screenshots of her comments back to him. She messaged me back later and was livid. She went away after that. No remorse for me, even though it was a crappy thing to do. Don't throw stones when you live in a glass house. Oh! Throwing stones in a glass house. I feel like we are so in the era of throwing stones living in a glass house right now. Even us right now. We're reading other people's stories and we've all had these moments. But you know what? It's okay. We're reading these stories and we're talking about it together in the comments as well. And we are learning how to make better decisions. You know what I'm talking about? Fun fact, I bought this when I went to do a video with Moist Critical a long time ago. I forgot to bring a keyboard, and so I just went to a Guitar Center with him and his team, and I just found this thing, and it sounded great. Get down with it. Get down with it. Get down with it. Get down with it. This commenter here says, oh, look, here's a random person who's interested in the same thing I'm into. I know, I'll try to ruin it for them. I'll never understand people like that. This is one example of how fan bases die. I love the idea of a fandom. I like the idea of community, of people having each other's backs, people sharing in stories and bonding over those stories. On my main channel, I made this video a long time ago, how I accidentally wrote the Office theme song. And a lot of people who love The Office, who have a community, who have bonded over watching The Office together, reached out to me and got a clean MP3 of that song and used that song to walk down the aisle. Fandom is so strong, because it's a story. Ultimately, it's like people coming together over a story. I just think it's so cool. Anyway, here's the next story. Revenge on the thieves. So I used to run a crew for a landscaping company and people love to steal the gas cans off of the trucks. One day we had to get all new cans because they got stolen, and these cans aren't cheap. They run around $60 each plus fuel. So when we went to fill them, we filled the diesel cans with gas and the gas cans with diesel. Okay. So that is bad. I think it should go without saying this is bad. That's gonna mess up the other engine as far as I understand. A couple of weeks later, we come to find the gas can stolen and have a slight laugh. Well, we pack up and head to our next stop only to find our gas cans on the side of the road empty. We pick them up and drive on down the road and find a brand new Cadillac Escalade sitting in the middle of the road, dead. We simply waved and went about our day. This happened quite often, but that first time was the best. I still remember the look on their faces as we drove past. No idea how many mowers and cars got damaged as a consequence for theft from those trucks. After we told the owner all the tanks got switched on every truck, and sometimes we would set a tank filled with something really bad in a very tempting location. There's a huge spider back here. Get down with it. Get down with it. Sometimes you gotta confuse the enemy, and this is a strategy to do that. What was in the very bad can? Brilliant idea, by the way. Copies of Adam Sandler's Jack and Jill. Okay, diesel in a gasoline engine is not so serious. Worst case would be to clean the fuel system and filters. Gasoline in a diesel car, that will destroy the engine. And this replier says, can confirm, with tears streaming down their face, this person is in pain, or they're the thief, in which case they need to get down with it. Get down with it. My dad was a truck driver in the 70s, and they had a pump in the yard for fueling the trucks. Every month, they watched someone pull in a car and fuel up with diesel. I asked why they didn't call the cops. He said they were being punished enough. You fueled them. Fuel me once. Sounds like a quote from Bush. Next story here. My coworker loves taking credit for other people's work. Then he got exposed. I work as a software engineer, and in my team, we follow the usual process of writing code, reviewing it, testing it, and deploying it. One of my coworkers, Steve, had a habit of taking credit for other people's work in front of management. He isn't a bad developer, but he loves making it seem like he was doing more than he actually was. I'm quite introverted, so I don't usually speak up in meetings unless I have to. Calling someone out directly doesn't come naturally to me, so I usually just let things slide. During a big project, I spent days fixing a complicated bug. The problem ran deep, and the fix had to work across different parts of the code. If you hadn't actually worked on it, it was pretty hard to follow. After a lot of testing, I finally got it done. At the next team meeting, before I could even say a word, Steve jumped in and started explaining my fix as if it was his. He kept saying things like, "We decided to," and "our approach was to," making it sound like he was the person behind it. I was annoyed, but I kept quiet. The next day, another bug popped up in the same area of the code. Our manager turned to Steve and said, "Since you worked on this, can you patch it?" And that's when the fun started. Steven froze. I added an N to his name because I thought it would be appropriate to give him his Christian name. The thing is, if you didn't actually write the fix, it wasn't easy to understand how it all fit together. He had no idea where even to begin. He tried stalling and even sent me a message asking if I could explain the logic of the code real quick. I told him that I was busy at the moment and that I will catch up with him later on. I didn't. After 5 hours of struggling, he finally admitted in the team chat and wrote something like, "Actually, I didn't write this part. Maybe Op can take a look?" I replied, "Of course. I will check it." 10 minutes later, I had it fixed. Our manager came over and congratulated me. We were chatting for a bit before heading off. He made a deliberate comment on about how great it was having somebody who actually understands what we are working on. Steve, or as we call him in Christian terms, Steven, didn't say a word. F*** you, Steve. Let's read the comments here. I had a guy that did this. He used to remove a blank line in code so he would have a commit. He did it to almost everyone. Then he tried to do it to me. I scorched him in front of everyone, grilling him on the fix, then took the screen and pulled up his blank commit. It was fun watching him explain that. So really quick, we're going to go in here and we're going to see what a commit is. You write some code, and commit is like checking it in or saving it to the main code base. A commit for a developer shows that they did something. Okay, so it's like he goes and he's like, yep, I was here. What a dork. Steve should leave people the credit they're due. Yes! Or as my friend Jax Film says, credit the creators. Let's do a little dance. Please start speaking up. Being introverted, it is difficult, but I found that if you have a few practiced sentence openers, it helps you get used to speaking. Things like, actually, when I wrote the code, I found ... Thanks, Steve, but in terms of ... etc. Keep practicing and you will see a huge difference. This has 400 upvotes. And this reply here says, being confident, open, and even a little brash, it is extremely useful for career success. You can succeed without it, especially in a technical role like software development. But if you can be confident and speak your mind, it's like doing your career on easy mode. Get down with it. Don't we want that? Yeah, dude, I don't know. I really flip-flop between being an extrovert and an introvert. A lot of it has to do with like anxiety and my stomach feeling weird and my guts feeling, everything feeling weird. And like if for a brief second I'm going to a place and I think to myself, I might have to use the bathroom over there, I freak out. I just don't go. And then I become extremely introverted. It's very hard for me to flick that switch. Some days I'm introverted, some days I'm extroverted. I'm sure you feel the same. Next story, overzealous mother-in-law doesn't respect food boundaries. Gets hit with the fart machine. The story has 18,000 upvotes, by the way. Just it's probably not going to ruin your lunch. We'll take a look at it. To preface, I love my mother-in-law and value and appreciate everything she does for my family. But she really leans into her role as a grandmother and has said, I'm a grandma. I can do whatever I want. I think at any point when you're saying I can do whatever I want, you're walking a tightrope here. I think there's maybe like one or two circumstances where you're allowed to say I can do whatever I want and it works out. And she says I can do whatever I want whenever we ask her to respect our food choices for our kid. This means spoiling her grandkids with sweets and treats against her kids' wishes at every whiff, which I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. Also, like, dude, giving, like, sweets and sugars and stuff, tummy ache express, dude. Anybody ever celebrate freaking Halloween, dude? Her kitchen is full cookie drawers at all times. I once watched her give my 8-year-old nephew a full angel food cake just to see what he would do. Spoiler alert, he ate the full thing and then got sick. Pause. Why don't you give a kid a knife just to see what he could do, huh? Different situations. Yes, of course, different situations. But what do you mean just to see what he could do? That's weird, dude. This kid isn't your science experiment. You want him to grow up being all right. You know, you're not giving him freaking gummies with a bunch of THC in there, have him floating around the house like a ghost. You're giving a kid a full angel food cake to see what he would. You're Miss Trunchbull in Matilda. You know the chubby kid who eats that entire chocolate, who's forced to eat that entire chocolate cake. Awful. Great movie. I should watch that again. Do you know that was directed by Danny DeVito? Isn't that crazy? So over the weekend, we're staying at her house, and my 3.5-year-old son is very well aware that she'll give him whatever he wants. It is breakfast time, and he's asking for ice cream and cookies, to which I say no and redirect him to his banana and yogurt. This is also... Obviously, it's a lot better than ice cream and cookies, but it's still pretty sweet. You know, it's a pretty sweet opening breakfast, but that's okay. Yogurt's good. Yogurt's really good because it's got probiotics in there. She gives him the chocolate chip cookies anyway, and I say, I'd appreciate you not feeding my son cookies before 8:30 in the morning. She just smiles and says, oh, come on, let him live a little. Later that morning, my wife and I are shopping at one of those beach/tchotchke stores. I don't think I've ever read the word tchotchke out loud. That's a crazy spelling, isn't it? But that's totally right. It's a coastal town, you know the type. And I overheard someone else say, who would want a fart noise maker on a keychain? Well, this guy. My mother-in-law absolutely hates potty humor, and my son is a 3.5-year-old boy, so yeah, farts are the funniest thing in his world right now. I bring it home, and it goes exactly as I predicted. She hates it, and he loves it, but she can't say anything because she sees how much he's enjoying himself. The thing has 6 different noises, so he's absolutely laying into having a blast and all around cackling. So my mother-in-law is grumbling about how disgusting it is and how she hopes it breaks, and I shoot her a grin and say, oh, come on, let him live a little. Great. My hope in this situation is that she learns a lesson. I also hope in general that y'all lay down the law and be like, okay, no, don't feed. I'm telling you not to feed him before this time. Because that could be, damn it. You know, you don't want a kid being sick all the time, or you can get not just stomach aches, headaches, migraines can be triggered by having sugar at like weird times of day. You know what I mean? Just I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but God, chocolate chip cookies pre 8:30 in the morning? I don't know. Then again, there's a cereal called Cookie Crisp. Y'all remember Cookie Crisp, dude? When I was a kid, I used to love that stuff. But look at me now. You know, I'm not well adjusted. You know what I'm saying? This person here says 10 out of 10, no notes. The only thing that would make it better is if it was included with a fart smell dispenser. I'd give that a 12 out of 10. Can I tell you something? No matter what, dude, fart smell sprays, don't do that. When I was filming my show in London, I was out there for 4 months, and one day somebody in the crew sprayed farts everywhere. And I was like, we are in a sound stage. There's a woman in her 70s playing my grandmother. You want her to smell that everywhere? It's not funny, dude. Don't do that. Please don't do that. He never did it again. Anyway, moving on. I thought this was going in more of a lactose intolerant direction. So did I. I'm not sure if I'm happy or disappointed that I didn't. Me for one, fart sounds very funny. Smells, on the other hand, miss me with that, dude. I want none of it. She hopes it breaks, so you better buy a few backups just in case and download a fart app so you and your boy can harmonize. Good God, y'all are evil. Holy God. Next story. My roommate keeps bringing visitors over all the time without warning. No problem. I have the solution. In my youth, I had to share a room countless times. Sometimes I had excellent roommates and other times I didn't, but the worst by far was Mr. John. First name Little. What? Mr. John and I shared a room in the 90s, and it was a nightmare to be with him. There wasn't a week when his friends wouldn't come over to play N64, role play, or argue about comics and manga. What do you mean role play? You just had people role playing in your living room? Sick if true. I just didn't know that's something people did. They just role play? Do you mean like Dungeons and Dragons or something? I didn't have a problem with that, but they would always come at any hour and without warning, and it was exhausting. Talking to John was useless, and even less so to the administration since they were silent. But it was affecting me. One night, his friends came over without telling me anything. I was already in bed, about to fall asleep. I tolerated it until I had to go to the bathroom and walked past where they were playing. There was no other way to go. Dressed only in boxers. I thought everything would be calm when I got back, but in the morning, John stopped me and asked me to stop walking around in my underwear. I said I had to go to the bathroom, but he told me to hold it, that I would bother his friends. All men, by the way. I counter-argued. They came over without warning, but he continued with the argument that he lived there and that they would come over whenever he wanted. That gave me an idea. The next time they came over without warning, I put on tidy whities and started walking around to the bathroom, to the kitchen, to do my life. John looked at me with hatred, but hey, I lived there too. Since he invited his friends over at any time without warning, I could dress however I wanted. This led to more arguments with John, but they were in vain. No one gave in. So whenever his friends came over unannounced, I'd dress in my underwear or jock straps and hang around, or we'd start talking about comics. I lived my life. After a while of seeing me almost naked, they started letting me know when they were coming, and they also cut back on the frequency. When it came to renewing contracts, John didn't sign me, and it was the best part. But I stayed in touch with his friends, including a Venom fan, so that was another victory. I wonder where the Venom fan is relevant. I guess you're a fan of Venom. You know what, dude? I went to the movies several months ago, and I saw Venom 3 without seeing the first two because I'm a AMC A-list member. You know what I'm talking about? So I just needed a reason to go to the movies. And honestly, I had a great time. I didn't see the first one. I didn't see the second one. I saw the third one. I was like, this is a pretty damn good movie. Just seeing movies, dude. Oh, God, I love seeing movies. I love just sitting there in a theater with your popcorn and a bunch of crunch. You got dark chocolate covered almonds, man. Ah! It's great when they get the popcorn right. Sometimes they burn the popcorn a little bit. Not a fan of that. And sometimes they undersalt it. Not a fan of that. But boy, do I love watching the movies. Got some guys to talk comics with. Dropped inconsiderate roommate. Found out you weren't an exhibitionist for guys. Win. This person replied, being in boxers was the only option I could think of, honestly. And about my friendship with that guy, it's very nice and productive. He taught me how to role play. Not as difficult and complex as D&D, but a role-playing game nonetheless. Okay, so it's not D&D. It's something else. I would have started moaning in my room and spew stuff like, you like that? So loud whenever they came over. The thing was that it had to be quiet, and playing Mario Kart 64 and Tidy Whities was enough. It's really funny. That reminds me of Breaking Bad. Everything reminds me of Breaking Bad today. His Tidy Whitey sold for $32,000. The world's most notorious underwear is up for grabs. Walter White's Tidy Whiteys. Okay, $7,000. Is this real, though? There's a website called thisiswhyimbroke.com, and it just has a bunch of different things to buy. Oh, cool. Wait a minute. You could buy a truck for $300,000? What is this website, dude? Bring color and uniqueness to your bathroom by crafting your very own mood ring toilet seat. Okay, this is enough of this. You know what else this reminds me of is like walking around in your underwear trying to fix your roommate's, broken boundary situation or lack of courtesy anyway. It reminds me of like you're about to get in a fight with somebody and you just strip naked. What are you going to do? Are they going to fight you while you're butt naked? Probably not. I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is my tummy ache is over. The bad news is this video is over as well. So I bid you a beautiful outro, and thank you for spending time with me. Outro! Get down with it.